We'll call today's meeting to order. Port of Allyn Commissioner meeting. Today's date, February 1st, 2021, believe it or not. We'll start with the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thanks, everybody. I know that we had some discussion last meeting about approving our meeting agenda before every meeting. So I'm not sure that we necessarily agreed to that, but if that's something that you want to do today, we can go ahead and do that. Just take a motion to approve today's agenda and a majority vote.
Chairman, I move to accept the agenda as submitted.
I'll second.
A motion with a second to approve today's agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. So we'll start out with the consent agenda items.
I move to approve regular meeting minutes of January 4th and special meeting minutes of January 8th. I have read them.
A motion on the floor. Do we have a second?
I'd like to discuss that.
Okay.
And
Discussion.
the executive director and I talked on the 4th. There's a paragraph, and I'm just trying to pull it up here, where there's a word diatribe. If we could remove that and just use discussed. On the special meeting, so I'm special minutes.
On January 8th.
Where you mean? I'll
Correct. Correct. I think Larry, it's like let me, there it is. Nope, it's not there.
Commissioner Scott mentioned it also, so I will take it out.
Okay. Other than that, I approve. I'll second.
With that correction.
Yes.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded with a correction. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. On to action items.
I make a motion to approve action items A, B, C, and C, but it should be A, B, C, and D.
Is there a D in there? I see an A, B, and C.
Yeah, there is a, it's supposed to be a D, but
How about if I
it
make
is,
a motion that we approve action items A, B, C1, C2?
Motion has been made.
sure, I'll second it.
Motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye as well. Motion carries. Moving on to commissioner reports. Commissioner Jackson, would you start for us?
Yes, we did the regular meeting and the special meeting, and then I had an opportunity to speak with the Port of Allyn regarding the salmon. I guess it would be called the salmon reintroduction to North Bay through Coulter Creek, and that was very rewarding, but at the same time, there's going to be a whole lot of hoops we have to go through. So I would like to make sure that the Port of Allyn, the Port of Grapeview are working together on this. It's going to take a whole lot of effort to get through it. We have a group of volunteers that are willing to work on this, and I'll make sure the executive director gets that list of volunteers, but all we have to do is try. I think all of us know that right by the Port of Allyn to see where the salmon reduction run has come. So we'll hopefully make something work. So,
Yeah, I've been talking about it, got some great feedback from
yeah,
people.
there's a lot. And you know what, one of the things as commissioners is that there's a tourist industry with the cutthroat trout coming into North Bay, which has increased, thank goodness to Department of Fish and Wildlife, that limits the retention of those fish. But there's a lot of fishermen that line our bank on the eastern shore on Victor's side that get up there and fish those things. So we'll try to improve the access, try to improve the abundance of fish. So
Thank
that's
you.
my report. Thank you.
Commissioner Scott?
Just the 2 meetings that I've gone to, a quick little update. The only thing about the Oyster House is that the siding has been purchased. We're still looking for somebody to install the siding. We do have to get the windows done first. I think that would be prudent. So I'd like to put a word out if we can find some Finnish carpenters that can reglaze and refinish some of the windows. That would be awesome. I
Great.
also wanted to know, Ted, now that you are the designated person for PRTPO, I think there's supposed to be one later this week. And I just want to know if you had a chance to go to any of those yet.
We had a meeting last week, but our internet was cut down and I could not log in. So I spoke to Tara. Her and I are supposed to talk this week about bringing me up to speed, and hopefully I'll attend the next one.
Okay, great. Other than that, that's it for me.
Slow month for me. I had the 2 port meetings and the EDC meeting via Zoom. Once again, the EDC's working on grants for small businesses and helping them out a lot. So if you happen to run into anybody from the EDC, tell them thank you for what they do. Moving on to the security officers report. It was in the agenda package. And Larry, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. January 1st, 2021, 15:25 hours. Received a call from ownership of the Sea Bear about a buoyed vessel that had broken free in stormy weather near a North Shore pier. He then let me know they had unbeached it and tied it up at our Pay Pier area. I arrived on site a few hours later to find it was Andy Pease's sailboat. I called Andy and informed him of what had transpired. He claimed that he would be out the following day to inspect his vessel and planned from there. It's also on the December incident report. 13:12 hours, received information from the executive director about an individual named Daniel McGlasson that's been known to strip out salvage boats and leave them at marinas around Seattle and Tacoma. The dive company that cleaned the gangways and pontoons called us to give us a heads up about Mr. McGlasson's activity in case he was seen around the area. And that was his report.
All right. Executive Director's report.
All right. Financial issues. We're holding the line on unnecessary expenses until we know how our established revenue streams are going to perform, considering what's happening with continuing COVID restrictions. However, just in case, we are accepting bookings for weddings and events at the gazebo. And we have booked, 4 of them in the last 5 days?
Yeah. Yeah,
Leanne?
Thursday, Friday, and today. So, yeah.
With that in mind, from a general fund cash perspective, it's my recommendation that while we go ahead and update our comprehensive scheme, that we embark on no new projects this year, but complete the ones we currently have in process. Problem being that we have to pay for the cost of the work up front. And while we get reimbursed fairly quickly, with revenues as tight as they are and uncertainty about our cash flow due to COVID restrictions, we have little or no We have little or no cushion for unplanned expenses. In relation to our ongoing projects, while the staging area is nearly complete, the Oyster House is finally going to move forward and will soak up a lot of our cash flow. We do have that $100,000 line of credit and we haven't tapped into it at all, and I hope we won't have to. However, I did move a small amount from it to the holding account and moved it back several days later just to show some activity in the account and keep the line active. Finally, we do have ongoing expenses related to the new well, but these will come out of the water fund, not the general fund. Water system issues. The two main issues right now are working on the new well and a decision about what to do with the Allyn water system test proposal. Joe Brogan presented a draft agreement for the test for Jeff to sign if you all decide to move forward. One major issue that needs to be agreed upon in writing is Jeff's intended service area. Copy of the agreement is in your meeting packet and is on the agenda for discussion. After the meeting with Jeff, I reached out to Ecology and spoke to them about what exactly is the status of Jeff's permit. Also, as you remember in our meeting, Jeff said he's open to the idea of discussing consolidation once again. So I reached out to him and Department of Health, which operates the loan grant program we were originally going to use to acquire his system, and it is still active. I reached out to Jeff and asked him for a realistic sale price, but haven't heard back from him on that. As reported last month, we're working with both Aspect Consultant and Northwest Water on planning for a new well. In spite of having an extension until March 2025, I believe we need to move as quickly as we can on this while our system is generating substantial revenue and connection fees. I would also like us to move forward with being able to service additional connections once we reach our allotted maximum, which we won't be able to do until the new well is operable. Pier piling issue, as reported previously, when the floats were clean, I also requested the diver inspect the pilings on the pier. There are at least two that need to be replaced. There are also several cross member braces that have rotted out and need replacing as well. I believe the best path forward be to have this re-inspected and done when we drive the pilings for the Oyster House platform later this year. We should get the best pricing at that point since the contractor will have already mobilized here for the new platform. HPA permit. Ted had asked me some time ago to secure this permit so we can work in and over the water. Allison Cook from WDFW will be taking a tour of our facilities on Wednesday. Electrical issue. We believe we finally have solved this problem. We had a meeting on the 11th of January with the contractor who did the work, the engineer who designed the system, and the vendor for the pedestals. Without going into a lot of technical detail, they reset all the ground fault circuit interrupters on the pedestals, on the main breakers and the panel on the dock, and on the main on the shore so that all the settings matched each other, which they didn't previously. Apparently they were installed correctly, but were never calibrated or tested. After resetting them and testing the system, it worked the way it was supposed to, so we'll see what happens. Policy updates. Early last year, I told you I'd be looking at our policies and procedures and updating them where it was appropriate. This month's update is to our mobile device policy. It is resolution number 419 on your agenda. North Shore Marina safety issue. We had a call from someone moored at the North Shore Marina about a safety concern. Seems that a child almost fell off the seawall at low tide. It's about a 6-foot drop at low tide in one spot. I had Don put up some temporary fencing along the top of the seawall and will install some permanent chain link fencing before boating season opens. Surplus issues. We have a lot of things sitting around that we aren't using and take up space. For example, we have our old copy machine, the heating unit from the Ogren house, some old computers and printers, your old iPads, some miscellaneous furniture and other stuff. I checked into exactly what the process is for declaring them surplus and selling them. As long as no single item is valued at $2,500 or more, we are free to sell them with no public process. But just so we don't get any blowback from this, even though we're not required to, I would propose we notice the sale in the journal as well as on our website and Facebook page, and depending upon the price, maybe buy a small display ad in the journal as well. Have Don cataloging everything with serial numbers so we have a complete list before moving forward. I will also have a resolution for you for this next month. Regular and special meeting agenda forms. We've had some valid criticism about the fact that we've varied from the agenda at special meetings. This has usually come from discussion to start in the public comments and good of the order segments. I've developed a new special meeting agenda form that eliminates all categories except for the new business items the meeting is about. A copy is in your meeting packet. I've also redone the regular meeting agenda as well. Previous version was actually built in Excel and was difficult to work with when it came to making changes. This one's in Microsoft Word. Outreach idea. When I was at the City of Port Orchard, I used to do a monthly video newsletter. I was wondering how you all would feel about doing something similar about what we're doing here at the port. We post on our website and page as a way to reach out to the public. Security camera issues. Commissioner Jackson connected us to a vendor that may have the answer to our problem here, at least for the park and marina. I'm hopeful we'll be able to be meeting shortly, and we're just having a little trouble connecting. In a worst case scenario, we can deploy the 8-channel LoRax system on the North Shore boat launch pretty easily. Cost of that will be about $1,000 installed. We can also use a smaller version at the North Shore Marina. And then today, I had a call from Jeff Reynolds. Some of you may remember him from Kitsap Bank. He was actually my banker for Wet Apple there for a number of years. He is now the Port Commission Chair for the Port of Waterman. And they just put in a security camera system at their pier in Waterman. And he gave me the number and name of the guy that put it in. They're really happy with it. And what it does is it takes the stuff that you see in the security camera and it puts it on their website, and it changes like every minute. So I talked to Greg and asked him about that. So he wants to find out more about the system itself. So we could do that on our website once we get system installed. Marina reservation service. Last year we did a trial with a new online reservation service called Dagwa. At the end of the trial, they wanted us to sign up for the entire year. However, the monthly cost didn't pencil over 12 months. For 6 months, it worked really well, and we got a lot of business out of it. But between about April and September, it was great. They came back last week with a reduced rate that looks like it will work. So we agreed to move forward with it. We'll be paying over the course of a year, but it pencils out to about $66 a month, which, you know, is next to nothing for what people pay to more. WPPA meeting schedules. Port Day in Olympia is tomorrow. It's an all-day Zoom meeting that's apparently going to have various legislators coming and going. If any of you are interested, you don't have to spend all day, but you can come and go as you want. There's no cost. I just need to register you, so let me know. Judy and I are both registered. Lobbying issues. I've had numerous conversations with our lobbyists over the past month. They've arranged for conference calls with our 35th district representatives, and those were productive. Representative Griffey is going to sponsor the bill for funding the second phase of the Oyster House, with Representative McEwen co-sponsoring it in the House, and Senator Sheldon has agreed to sponsor it in the Senate. Everyone seems confident it will be included in this year's capital budget. No one is willing to make any predictions on Sweetwater Park, as the governor's budget only funds about 25 projects on that list. Which 25 is the big question. Senator Sheldon believes RCO will end up with more funding than what the governor has indicated, but how much more exactly and which projects will be funded, still a mystery. They may not be funded in ranked order, but possibly by how many can be funded with the money allocated. It's just up in the air and nobody knows for sure what they're going to do. Redistricting. When the census results become available in May, we have 8 months to draw new commissioner district boundaries consistent with the census information. Our deadline for completing this process is January 15th, 2022. This will require engaging a consultant and some public hearings. I previously reached out to all the other Mason County ports in hiring one consultant, splitting the cost. I heard back from Shelton on Thursday, and their executive director is going to talk to their commissioners about it. Greatview said they want to talk about it. Duato said they don't expect there to be any changes, so they don't anticipate participating in that. Port Centennial, September 10th, 2020, a Friday. The port will be 100 years old. Last month, we briefly discussed having some kind of public open house event to celebrate this, and now that we have a date, I want to get your input on it. I'm looking into having some kind of commemorative plaque or monument made that could be placed where the totem pole is now. Belfair artist James Kelsey has a piece of art I thought would be appropriate, brass and glass fish, but when I talked to him, found out we can't begin to afford it. However, he did say he'd come up with some sketches for pieces that may work and present the sketches to you at a later date. He and I played phone tag several days last week about this, but never did connect. Salmon hatchery issue. Port of Greatview is attempting to put together a volunteer task force to reopen the Coulter Creek salmon hatchery, restore salmon runs in North Bay. Commissioner Jackson thinks we should offer to partner with them. I had a couple of brief email exchanges with Bob Pasteur about it, but haven't heard anything more from him. So that's my report, unless you want me to go into old business.
Yes.
Okay. Oyster House, not much to report on this as we're waiting on the Army Corps permit so we can take out the launch ramp when the fish window reopens later this year. Bill Ray says he expects it to be permitted before the fish window opens, but isn't exactly sure when that will be. Trying to work on this so we can put the job out to bid and be ready to take out the launch ramp and start construction on the day the fish window opens. Sweetwater Park, nothing new to report here other than what I said previously under lobbying issues. As noted previously, the Salmon Center's agreed to pay half of the cost of a large sign for the project, but I think we probably need to wait, make sure the grant will be funded before spending any money. Staging area development, we're almost finished with this project. Had a contractor out to give us a bid on paving, which may be cheaper in the long run as we don't have to re-rock it every year. We're going to have trenches dug for conduits for the security cameras and water, probably later this week or next week. And then we're going to put down another layer of rock, which we need to have rolled flat and let it settle in before they pave. We contacted Zephyrs, but he says he's too busy with his regular customers to do it. So we have found someone else to do it. We still have over $100,000 left in that grant, and I don't expect it to cost more than $40,000 to finish the project, including the paving. All that we need is to put signage, which we already have in place. Voting season opens Saturday, May 1st, so as long as we're ready by then, we're good. Although I'm shooting for a ribbon cutting late March, early April. Transient moorage expansion project. This project is complete except for security cameras and the potential of expanding the fire flow capacity, which we're not going to move forward on at this time. However, the grant closes June 30, and I'm going to keep it open until then just in case something else comes up. There's approximately $88,000 left in that grant. All ports meeting. The association has resumed having meetings via Zoom. First one was January 25th, which I attended. Both James Thompson and Jerry O'Keefe from WPPA were there as well. What I learned was every port that has an Army Corps permit pending, like us, has waited more than a year for it. One port is over 2 years, and it's endangered its funding on 2 different grants. So we aren't alone in this situation. Also, derelict vessels are becoming a big problem, with one guy who finds boats that are abandoned or moored offshore, like the ones out the North Shore, strips them for all the metal and other saleable items, and then depending on where they are, often ties them up at the nearest marina and disappears. And that's the one that Travis referred to in his report. They have identified him, but as of yet, he's still in the wind. Nobody's been able to actually find him. Another thing that's become a major issue is people tying up at a marina, paying a couple of days moorage, and then stop paying. claiming the vessel is their home under the governor's anti-eviction dictate. They can't be made to move for non-payment according to a Superior Court ruling from King County. Luckily, we haven't been faced with any of that, but I think it's not if, but when. And then criminalization of the Marina rules. Once we get the cameras in place, we can move forward. Until then, we're in a holding pattern. That's my report.
Thanks, Larry. To move on to new business. The first item on our new business is discussion of agreement with the Allyn Carey water system for testing with possible action.
I put a draft agreement from Joe Brogan in all your packets, and I trust that you've reviewed it. Also, we have Tyson Carlson from Aspect Consulting here, and he'll answer any questions that you might have.
Does Jeff have a copy of the draft?
I don't believe so. I wanted you guys to approve it before I sent it to him.
Well, the only thing that, that I took issue with was number 11, and I'm going to pull it up here. Can.
Let me find it. Well,
You want me to read it to everybody?
I just pulled it up. But I thought it was changed from the draft, the last final copy I received.
yeah, there is some wording changes in it.
So I'm fine with the entire agreement. I want to do it. I want to agree to it tonight. I want to let Jeff do this. I just don't know why. And I understand what Joe says, that number 11 says that there is a genuine disagreement exists between the district and the operator regarding the planned expansion of the Carey water system in district water service within the district's approved service area, the service area disagreement. On January 8th, 2021, the operator expressed an interest in further exploring a sale of the Carey water system to the district. The district has since explored potential state grant funding associated with the purchase of the Carey water system. Prior to commencing the testing authorized by this agreement, parties shall mutually agree that their joint efforts to explore district acquisition of the Carey water system or resolution of the service area disagreement have terminated. I guess I don't understand what our disagreement is, what the genuine disagreement is.
As I see it, it's overlapping service areas.
Well,
Yeah.
one of my questions too for the, I guess is for Tyson. Considering what's been outlined here, with Carey's water application and what it actually says, and what you know about the status of the port's new well, because this could all affect it. What do you think is the worst possible scenario the port could find itself if Carey's water, if Mr. Carey's water right is granted? That concerns me greatly. How is it going to affect us?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think frankly, sitting here as an advocate for the Port of Allyn, I would say that the worst possible scenario is that the port and Mr. Carey will be in competition for up to 200 connections in the commercial and residential core of the town of Allyn. This not only will affect the port's customer base, the ability of the port to provide for water supply to its customers at reasonable rates, ultimately negatively impacting the port's ability to fulfill its duty to serve requirements to all new service connections within the service area. So, that frankly, to put it on the table, is my largest concern from an operational standpoint. From a physical standpoint, it's another withdrawal from the aquifer. The aquifer and it could potentially lead to interference drawdown and make the port's well less productive, and increase the risk of saltwater intrusion. And all those things will lead ultimately to have a greater impact on regulated stream flows, and it makes it that much more difficult for us, which the port has a check-in with the tribe to show the efficacy of the mitigation. So all those things combined, those are the things that concern me, both from the physical and the contractual side of things.
Well, Tyson, Ted Jackson, don't we have all three water systems have to show the tribes what the drawdown is in the aquifer? Washington Water Power, Mr. Carey system, and the Port of Allyn?
I guess I'm not quite sure what you mean by have to show.
But if let's say the Port of Allyn draws another well, don't we have to prove to the tribe what we're doing to the aquifer at Sweetwater Creek?
Yeah, that's going to be we do have a check-in with the tribe to demonstrate how the mitigation is being effective, if that's what you mean, under the mitigation plan, and also as part of that recent the agreement with the tribe for that recent extension, permanent development schedule extension.
Well, I guess with our fiduciary responsibility for the port, and I think in one hand, I'm all for property rights, for Jeff to be able to do what he wants to do. But I think in my position as a commissioner, it's really important that we protect what we have because the taxpayers have paid for it. I appreciate what Jeff even said about as a taxpayer, he thinks we shouldn't spend more money on another system, but it's really an asset. I mean, Jeff has an asset, and he wants to expand that asset. So I'm just a little concerned about all this. Not that I'm necessarily against the well testing, but the end results. What's the end results of that? And are we going to be in a position of compromise if we do that? I know DOE has to weigh in on all this as well. And I guess, Tyson, that's one thing I need to know too, is let's say that he does his testing. And I mean, ultimately, I think he wants to expand. Jeff, you're listening, I'm sure. Ultimately, he wants to expand his water system, or at least get water rights. So where's that going to, how's that going to affect our ability to continue on?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Commissioner. And that was part of my comment about, being in competition for service connections within the service area. I mean, the legislature kind of envisioned something like this going on and try to untangle it as parts of the municipal water law. I am not convinced that ecology, there are statutes against approving overlapping water systems without resolving that. So I'm not convinced that ecology will ultimately approve the water right application and issue a permit. I believe that overlapping place of use for the municipal water systems is in direct conflict with municipal water law. So
Tyson,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead,
Tyson,
Ted.
if we were to approve the testing and we want to control how many connects Mr. Carey has, I mean, we approve the first step would be the testing. And my opinion is that the whole Allyn water system needs to be one system. And I truly can't believe why it became such a mess. But if we want to approve the testing, what variance will we have, or what negative impact will we have to the Allyn or the Port of Allyn system?
From the physical side or kind of the legal side, I guess.
I guess it's both. I should say it is both. Mm-hmm. It'd be from the legal side, is that if Mr. Carey says he tests a system, it's approved, what negative impact would it be to the Port of Allyn? So
from the legal side, it's carving out a chunk of the water service area that the port is currently approved for. The port not only has that service area approved, they have the water right, they have the water right quantities, The water is permitted for the entire UGA under the port's current water right. There is no added public benefit for ecology approving additional water supply within that area. So that's kind of from the legal standpoint. And any impact to that, I believe, would come at a diminishment of the port's water right, or there would have to be some sort of discussion about that. And especially with the tribe. The tribe is keenly aware of the port's water right situation, as we just discussed it with them for the recent permit extension. So, and this was one of the things that they brought up. From the physical standpoint, I think it's just this is a coastal environment. Coastal environment and the aquifers can be, let's just say, delicate, just to avoid seawater intrusion and whatnot. And with the port's primary water supply well, they're, very near the coast, that could have a negative impact on your water quality and the ability, as it stands right now, your sole source of water supply.
So do you think it'd be a benefit to us to talk to ecology before we approve this?
I do.
I think I would like to do that. And the thing of it is too, is that, Jeff has put a lot of money into his system. And I know that we talked about this before, about maybe the port purchasing his. And maybe that's something that we could do so he doesn't have to spend any more money already what he has, because obviously he spent a lot already. And I know that you're listening, you'll get your chance, I think, Jeff. But, that might, or the other option I've heard too is that he can buy water from us, which might be another option. I would really like to talk to DOE.
Yeah, and great points. And I think all those points have been, if you look through the file, have been heavily encouraged by ecology and Department of Health.
For action on the agreement, is there no action? Are we going to table it, or are we going to move to a vote?
I would like to table it. I'm sorry, Jeff, but I really think that we should probably talk to DOE, because, even testing, it's going to be expensive for Jeff, because this agreement has him on the hook.
Jeff spending the money, that's Jeff's deal. We shouldn't worry about Jeff's money.
Well, no, that's true. But, as a tax,
Well, how about this? I move to approve the agreement with the Allyn Carey water system and the port. Okay, there you go. Dies on the vine. Okay, let's move on to item B.
Would one of the other commissioners want to just move to table it for the time being?
yes, I
Yeah.
move to table it. If we even have to have
I would
Go ahead.
second with Judy in that I would like to see Mr. Carey, ecology, and whoever from the port sit down and talk. I really would. Because I truly believe that we have three systems in a small area that need to be consolidated one way or the other. I can't believe ecology even approved those three systems, but I would like to see us table it and have a discussion. But I do not want to do it any further than our March meeting. I want to have this approved or disapproved, and I want to get it done because Mr. Carey has been waiting patiently for this. So, and I think Mr. Bogren, the attorney, wrote up a very agreeable agreement. So
the motion was to table it till the March meeting. Do I have a second on that? All right. Ted, did you second it?
yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries.
I do want to add, I think I understood that you wanted it to get done before the March meeting. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, that was misspoken. At the March meeting.
Okay.
Approved.
Because I don't have a problem, getting together sooner if we need to.
I think we need to have the discussion with ecology prior to the March meeting, and then make our final determination at the March meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you for
All
clarifying.
right, moving on to new business. Item B, discussion of proposal from Aspect Consulting for engineering services for the new well, possible action.
Okay, Tyson gave us a contract for working on the new well within my spending authority to approve it, but I thought you all might want to ask questions about it because ultimately this is going to be a, high dollar item by the time we get done with it. So he's here if you wanted to ask questions. So.
Well, I looked at it, but I don't have any questions at this point. Because it's kind of it's kind of a living, not a living document, but as you well know, there's sometimes variables in prices. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think so. The purpose, I need to pull it up I don't have it in front of me, but the purpose of this one is to complete the well siting, the preliminary well design, do the specifications for the driller, an engineer's cost estimate, based on current prices. I think that's what you're referring to. And
Yeah.
then, supporting getting it out to bid so we can actually get some hard prices right now. As of most of the construction industry, things are pretty busy right now. Drillers are backed up. Our goal is to get this thing, advanced and completed in 2021 because it is the current, service limitation on the port's water system. So we want to be responsive to that. And in order to do so, we at least need to start the bid process here, pretty quick. So this is kicking off the process. And then, as a conclusion of this scope, what you'll have is the preliminary well design, the specs, and hopefully, a list of interested drillers with their costs. So then that we can make a recommendation to the port on whether to award it and who to award it to, and what considerations will be needed there.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have any questions.
You all want to make a motion to approve it, or do you just want me to approve it?
No, I'll make a motion to approve the contract change, project number 200403.
Motion on the floor
I'll second it.
with a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to 9C, update mobile device with the resolution. Now, I've got an email from Mr. Van Buskirk. He'd like to thank us for posting the agenda. Thinks it's a step in the right direction. Approval of the agenda at the beginning of the meeting, another step in the right direction. And looks forward to the special meetings for only specific purposes. He's asking us to consider to table 9C until a following meeting so that the public can make adequately informed comment. Maybe the current policy doesn't need to be changed or amended. I'd like to recommend that we do table that. I haven't had a good chance to go over it. I'm not sure that there is necessarily a reason to change the policy. If we could just table that till the March meeting. And we will give people ample time to comment on it. He brings up that we only mentioned it in a special meeting where we actually shouldn't have. So we can we'll put it on our agenda in March and we'll discuss it with possible action rather than have it here with. So the commissioners can.
Looked at my email also, and I have a email from Mr. Van Buskirk that came at 6:01 asking for a copy of the actual policy. So I'm going to go ahead and send that.
Yeah, I think it's only right to table this till next month.
I agree.
With the only recommendation at the last paragraph, it says the courts have determined that since port owned equipment, there's an RCW or a WAC that refers to that. All we have to do is put the RCW and the rest can just per RCW or per WAC, port-owned equipment and the electronic communications are blah, blah, blah. So we don't have to do the last whole paragraph. There is a RCW, and Larry, I can pull it up,
Okay, that's fine.
but we can make it shorter. But I agree, we could table it till the next.
Okay, and meanwhile, I'll go ahead and forward this to Ken right now.
All right, so we're gonna table item C, update mobile device policy. Then we're gonna move on to item number D, discussion of updated public
Open public-
records and public meet. I think that should be OPMA, open public meeting for commissioners and staff. That was, we made a couple mistakes in our special meeting with agendas, and we want to correct those and fall on the sword and do what's right in the future. So what I said was I would go and meet with Larry and Leanne. We'd print out the RCW. If we're not informing our public correctly, let's do that. Let's look at what's out there, what we should be doing. We haven't done that yet, but we should do that in the next week or two, and look up the training, what's out there. I know there's some training through the state auditor's office that's online training, and it would be a good refresher for us to do that. That's my 2 cents on it. We were waiting for Leanne to come back. It sounds like she'll be back, and we'll get that. Larry has done the regular meeting agenda, an update to that. He did a special meeting agenda, so we should make those corrections. Any other input from the other two commissioners or the staff is welcome.
Well, I approve that we make a motion to attend OMPA and PRA training for all commissioners and staff.
Yeah, I agree. We
Is
usually
that a
do
motion,
approve.
Commissioner?
Yeah, well,
Do we
I
need a
think
motion
so.
for
I'll
that?
second it. I'll
Okay,
second.
motion on the floor with a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Item number E was kind of along the same, we're having these special meetings because we have more items than we can really attend to on our agenda. Maybe it would be smarter to have just a second meeting in the month so we can have a regular meeting. Of course, that means that 3 of us get that meeting stipend. So what my idea was to schedule a second meeting, go through the process to make sure that it's a regularly scheduled meeting. We found out that the second Monday is the Allyn Community Association, so we'll find a meeting date that works for everybody, and we'll just make it a second meeting. If we don't have enough items, we just will cancel the meeting due to lack of agendas. We'll save the port that stipend money, and that was that idea. But Larry and Leanne are going to look into that, see what it takes. I read through a little bit on OPMA. You have to make some notifications and tell people when it's going to be, where it's going to be. Larry, I know that you looked it up as well.
Yeah. I'll take care of it,
Okay,
but you all pay me for it.
that's right. I know that one of the other things in our regular meeting agenda items is that we don't put a limit on public comment, which is probably a good thing. But Larry had to do a lot of, you're welcome, Brad. But Larry had to do a lot of minute taking, and so if we could ask during public comment, if you could try to keep it short, because to be respectful of staff and other people's time. That's all I ask.
Well, one thing, Commissioner Cooper, is that when I was working for the city is that we had 3 minutes public testimony right after the agenda was announced and approved.
Yes.
Everything non-agenda items. And then after the agenda and after the city council members went through it, you had an additional 3 minutes. And believe me, the mayor was very good about keeping us 3 minutes. So, I mean, that's something we may want to look at is, and it's within the rules. But I think maybe if we do something at the beginning and then something at the end.
Yeah,
So people can talk about the previous meeting and then things that were discussed on the agenda, they could talk about them afterwards.
I
Yep.
instituted that same policy at the city of Port Orchard with 2 public meeting things. So, you know, for
6
what,
total minutes. So I'm going to open it up to public comment. And Larry, you got the controls.
okay. So let me unmute everybody here.
Raise your hand.
I think I got everybody here. Okay, Ken has a raised hand.
Ken, would you
Ken-
like to go
Ken is-
first?
Sure, if that's all right. I'm not stepping
That's
on
all
anybody's
right.
toes.
No?
Sure. Thank you. I sorry about the confusion on that mobile device policy, but I really want to see what changes were made in it, and might be helpful if during the meeting if you continue doing Zoom meetings, that you share the information on the screen with the participants, or if you could put the materials that get sent to the commissioners along with the agenda on the website so that the public can educate themselves. I had a recent phone call with the unit supervisor from the toxic cleanup program with the Department of Ecology. We were talking about an old service station down here on the old Belfair Highway. And I recognized his name, and we ended up discussing Sweetwater Creek. And he told me that Sweetwater property is still on the Department of Ecology's list. And I wanted to ask the commissioners to encourage Mr. Coppola to reach out to him and enter the property back into the voluntary cleanup program. Regardless of whatever you've heard from the private property owner and the Salmon Enhancement Group, it's still on the Department of Ecology list, and I can get you the guy's name and phone number. Let me see. Secondly, at one of your recent meetings, and then again tonight, I heard some discussion about redistricting after the census data is complete, and talking about hiring a consultant or something. But rather than do that, one thing I'd like to suggest that you look at doing, updating the port policy to make the commissioner positions at large rather than by specific district. I think that would allow for more interested parties to participate in board vacancies and elections. And there's several other representative bodies here in North Mason that are all at-large positions, like the hospital district. That would be might be a better way to go, as something that you might look at doing in your policy. And lastly, sent a couple requests to you commissioners and to your attorney to give me a phone call. I would like to discuss performance and mobile policy device and some of the stuff I've seen on those devices, and most recently to request so that you might evaluate a complaint in an executive session. And I've not received any responses with the exception of Commissioner Jackson. And I think given the sensitivity of what I have to say and show to you, you'll want to hear it in executive session. And I promise on my part, it will stay in executive session. And I just encourage you to give me a call. Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
May I respond to a little bit of that if possible? Executive session is very specific. It can't be in regard to performance unless it's commissioners with staff. I haven't called because I know that you have issues with Larry and have had a past with that. So I could call you, but I'm more than happy to hear what you have to say via the Zoom meetings as well. You want transparency, we need transparency too. End
Am
of
I
subject.
still on the line here?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess
Ken.
so. Well, actually, Judy, it's not just Larry. I want to speak to all the commissioners as well and lodge a complaint against the commission. And I think you'd want to hear it in executive session. So that's, and I'd be happy to talk to you about it. Maybe a quorum of you will agree that you want to hear it in executive session. So that's all. Thanks.
Brad.
Can I get in here? This is Bonnie. If it's a complaint against the commission, I'd be concerned that the public doesn't know about it. I think if you talk to the chair and get their consideration of what they should do with it. I'm not sure how you get a higher authority than the chair. And if it's against them, I think the public has a right to know too, if it's that important. Can you put it in writing, Ken? Then they could discuss it.
All right, let's not have a discussion between people. Bonnie, we're going to move on to Brad next. Thank you for your input.
Port of
Hi,
Allyn.
Brad.
Hi there. Just taking off from Ken's comment real quickly. What you guys might look at doing, or Ken might be able to introduce it into executive session under the, the title of potential litigation. Because, you can discuss personnel issues, litigation activities, or, real estate type stuff in executive session. So that might be an avenue for bringing it. I guess that would mean that Ken might have to say, look, I want to meet with the commission. I want some action taken on a complaint I have. And if I can't get that action, it will result in litigation. Then that would allow you guys to have that executive forum. Okay, that doesn't count for my public comment. That counts as Ken's, okay? Okay, now with regard to meeting minutes, the law is real clear. I used to be a secretary for a public agency. The law is real clear that when you're keeping meeting minutes, it's not to detail everything you're doing. It's like when I'm giving public comment, you can say Brad gave public comment. He talked about, the Public Records Act. He talked about Ken's executive session request or whatever, and that's it. Just real simple. Don't have to get into all the details. Meeting minutes are to give the readers and the commission, which are the readers as well, the ability to go back and read it and understand kind of what took place during that meeting. It's not to be a detailed transcript. It's simply to be an overview of what went on in the meeting. So, okay. By the way, I will tell you as a former public official and public commissioner, I found that when we limited the public's ability or put timelines on their public comment, that put pressure on them to try to get everything out. It didn't create a dialogue. And I mean, we had some pretty big meetings where we'd have 100, 125 people show up, which I've talked about in the past. I've noticed with the Port of Allyn, you get 2 or 3 if you're lucky. So, I think it's something that the chair needs to be the moderator on. And you don't have to have any public comment. There's no law that says you have to have a public comment. And so it's something that, you put it on the agenda. And if you get 1 or 2 people showing up, maybe you have to use judgment. But if you had 100 people here tonight, then you might have to limit it because we'd be here forever. And then Larry would never get the meeting minutes done. Okay. And by the way, I found when I'm able to communicate and ask questions of my public officials, which is what my public officials I think would like me to do, that if I can get answers to my questions, then I don't have to make requests for public records. Because oftentimes I'm making a request for a public document, it's to answer a question I have. Like, how much are we paying Stephen DiGiulio? And I couldn't get the answer. Nobody seemed to know what we're paying him. So I had to make a request for that public document. And I'm sure you guys have seen the emails back and forth on that. Ultimately, Larry Coppola was able to get a fee schedule. And as you guys probably know, it's $675 an hour. So with regard to the earlier conversation about the port's ability to cut costs and to try to throttle spending, as a business owner of multiple businesses and a former public municipal employee, I would cut that off right away. That is a very, very expensive attorney. You got a lot of good attorneys. First of all, in the area of the Public Records Act, if you're operating in good faith and doing your best to try to provide the public with records, you're not going to get sued. You're just not. The law has changed. The law says if you're operating in good faith, there's no punitive. And if all the person can expect to get is their cost, if that, for those, gold diggers, I'll call them, they're out there just trying to trip public agencies up and make records requests and make their life miserable. It's not in my opinion, a advantageous, endeavor for them. How am I doing on time? Hang on. Okay. Look, guys, I'll ask this question with regard to the water. RCW 5308-040, Section 4. You guys, if you haven't read it, you got to read it. And maybe I'm just missing something. Ports are in the business of creating economic development and industrial, activity. They're out wanting to bring businesses, to the table, setting up lures for them, bringing them in, creating growth. And, being in the water business, it says, again, no port shall enter into an agreement or contract to provide, and I'll skip the sewer. It says, or water utilities or pollution control facilities, if substantially similar utilities and facilities are available from another source or sources. You got Washington Water on the one side. Mr. Carlson probably knows about that. You got Jeff's system on the other side. You got Lakeland Village up there. Look, I've got a well where I live. I've got wells where my investment property are. I'm tied into Shorebrook Water Systems Aquafleur. The water's everybody's. It's not yours. It's not mine. Of course, we are the municipal corporation, the shareholders, as taxpayers, but it's everybody's water. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is when the legislature drafted these RCWs, they were clear. They said that if you're going to be in the water business, that's fine, but it provides strict stipulations. And it says if it's available from other sources, which is able and willing to provide such utilities or facilities at a reasonable and non-discriminatory basis, unless other such source or sources consent thereto. So I'll ask the question and maybe I'll get an answer. I guess I could make a records request for the documentation that says you have the consent of the adjacent water districts to be in the distribution business of water. Don't want to make a big deal out of it, but I'm really wondering how the Port of Allyn sees itself complying with the Section 4 of RCW 5308-040. It's plain English. I mean, I don't have a degree in law, don't have a degree in English, but I do have common sense. And I have done some snooping around with other port districts and a few people at our state legislature. And they say, hey, it's written this way for a reason. Now, if Jeff wants to consent, if Washington Water wants to consent, if Lakeland Village wants to consent to the Port of Allyn distributing water, hey, there's your green light. But if they haven't, then what's the Port of Allyn doing? And why would the Port of Allyn want to be in the water business anyway? I mean, especially if they can't deliver water as competitively as some of these other utility districts. That's what water utility districts do. I mean, so anyway, can someone at the port answer that question for me? And one more thing, Knowing the Waters. That book was written back in the, 80s. I think it was updated in 1996, Knowing the Waters. I read that document recently. It's online. I would suggest all three port commissioners, even if they've read it before, read it again. It's about 54 pages, but it does a very good job covering the Open Public Meeting Law as well as the Public Records Act, and just overall what the purpose of a municipal corporation is and how it works for the people. So thanks. Sorry, I used about 2 minutes too much.
No, I got a question. Okay, I understand, I think 99% of what you said. So how did we get to this point? If we look back through the whole process of the Cary water system, the Port of Allyn system, Lakeland system, Washington system, how did we get to this point without government approving each one of these systems?
You know, I probably broke the speed limit law today going down North Shore. I probably was doing 45 and a 35. Does that answer your question? In other words, what happens is this, is you can go along and there are all kinds of laws and rules on the book, you know? I mean, you can't carry your firearm into a bank, okay, right? Some people do. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is these laws they're laws, but they're also to help guide us down this path. I mean, it's not a perfect world, okay? I mean, so what happens is to get the way you got to this point is somebody said, hey, we need some water. And they didn't address this RCW. They said, well, let's go ahead and dig a well. And let's put some water storage up on the hill and let's provide, what is it, a hotel room down there with water, right? And once you start, what's that?
Fire flow. We needed fire flow.
Fire flow, right. That's a tongue twister. So you get into the business that way, and it's understandable, it happens. But what do you do? And it's not a unsolvable problem here. But what do you do when you recognize that you may not be quite in compliance? Then you say, okay, how are we gonna make this work to where we get ourselves back in compliance? I mean, as a taxpayer in the Port of Allyn, even if I wasn't, but as a taxpayer in Port of Allyn, I'm not so sure I want my tax dollars being spent putting a well in the ground and pulling water out and distributing it if they can't do it economically. Because right now, well, even if money wasn't tight, you know, I mean, you got all these municipal districts asking for federal money, right? At the state and even smaller local level. I mean, but even if everything was booming, you know, as far as, you know, agencies weren't having, you know, financial shortfalls and what have you. The point is that I would rather have a water district, you know, be in the business of distributing water. That way the Port of Allyn doesn't have to use, you know, what is it, Northwest Water Systems to do their work. I mean, even PUDs in the water business, you know, PUD 3, I think, aren't they? Don't they have, I remember they came in and wanted to take over. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
PUD 1, sorry.
PUD 1, sorry. Yeah, PUD 1. So I'm saying that there are agencies and there should be no shame or embarrassment. It should be a financial decision to try to bring, in other words, how best can you utilize the taxpayers' money? And if it's to stay in the water business and there's a way you can do it, then do it that way. And if it's to get out of the water business and turn it over to a water district, because that's what they do, that can do it much more economically and efficiently, then that we all win. And that was another thing about competition. Competition does two things. It lowers price and improves service. And I've got multiple companies, and I do the best when there's competition. When there's no competition, quality of service goes down unless you're really self-motivated, and your prices go up. That is unhealthy in our economic system of America. So competition's a good word, not a bad word. Now, ports are allowed to compete with other ports, okay, for business, for economic growth and industrial development. Again, that's the mandate that the ports work under. Now, if they need to set up a water system and pollution system and a sewer system because nobody else will do it, or the adjacent ones are there, like let's say Mason County is in the sewer business, but they say, you know what, we don't want to handle the sewer in your area, then you can go ahead and get in the sewer business. Water, it says you have to have the consent of the adjacent parties. Maybe nobody was adjacent to you, but I know my brother had his application. He can vouch for that. His water applications in before the Port of Allyn. So Washington Water, I'm not sure what their history is, but I mean, in a perfect world, the Port of Allyn should say, we need water, right? And so is there anyone out there next to us that is willing to give us water, sell us water? Or
Commissioner
provide
Jackson,
water?
did that answer your question?
Pardon?
It does. I'll have some additional questions once I start thinking about it.
I wanted to move on to good to the order. I have one thing for good to the order, and it looks like Jeff's got something. Jeff, go ahead.
I got at least a list, so it doesn't, I'll stay focused. With respect to the tabling of this agreement, is there any possibility to acquire a copy of it from the port so that I could at least have a running head start? Because it would not be good if, there's things like that clause 11. I'm still a little unsure what's all there, and it doesn't sound the way I would like it or even close, but I can't make any judgment, and I don't want to. I can see where this can go. You make a decision at your March meeting. Let's just say it was a yes. I look at the agreement, have attorney review it, maybe 2 weeks go by, and the next thing you know, we're into May before you know it. And I don't want to go there, if we're going to try to make it work. So if it's possible, I'd appreciate it. I heard in the discussion that we're working on siting a well. Have we sited a well, or we're just in the process of? Question mark there.
Tyson, you want to address that?
Muted.
Wait a minute.
You're on mute.
There you go.
I think you'd figure that out by now after all this time. No, we have not selected a well site. We've talked about potential options, but the well site has not been selected.
Okay, no problem. Okay, second thing.
Yeah,
Our
but
current, just for a little bit of education, and I won't get in a long drawn out thing because I don't want to make this a workshop, and just a couple points. Our current water system went through all the reviews, both the Ecology, Department of Health, and Mason County Community Development. You'd have to look at the sequence of events, how we, this is kind of answering Ted's question. How did we get to where we got? If you put down a chronological list of all the parties, i.e. Lakeland, i.e. Washington Water, myself, and the port, and you come down through it, you can quickly see how we got to this point where you have overlapping areas. Our current service area currently is about 17 acres. Our service area currently does not serve any, and is not intended to serve any commercial. One of the reasons going way back that we ended up applying for a water right is that when the port had its created its water system plan back in 2003, there was an area they were talking about servicing. There was an area of types, like commercial, that they were going to address. They had a legal finding on it. And at that point, I made a decision that said, well, if we're going to do anything in the plat of Allyn, in the properties myself and the family own, and if we don't want to put a bunch of wells in here, we're going to have to create a water system. So at that point, after reviewing the port's plan for better than at least 9 months, in 2004, I applied for a water right application to serve that portion of the plat. And basically that area that I designated in that initial application, well, that's bigger than the 17 acres. It was still basically residential. It was basically in the corner of the plat that was not getting any service, had no access to port facilities, so on and so forth. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that there is a logical reason how a path of progress, if you want to call it progress, how we got to the situation we got to as far as overlapping districts. The main thing right now is, regardless, like I have the senior applicant as compared to the port. That's a problem for ecology. That's not a problem that the port didn't make that problem. Mason County didn't make that problem. Department of Health didn't make that problem. Ecology made the problem. The problem is the port didn't have an upgraded plan, but made a statement and a series of statements to move the water right application. We can debate that at another time, but it happened. It is what it is, and it's moved forward. At this moment, even with just having 14 connections, I can't serve that full 17 acres. So minimally, Department of Ecology, Department of Health, they're all going to have to figure this out and deal with this. Again, one of the issues that why this even got going in the first place is the Port of Allyn could not do latecomers agreements. If they wanted to finance the whole thing like they did when they put in the tank, they could do it. But as far as bringing more service into the area, that's why we ended up getting started, because it wasn't coming, it wasn't happening. And at that earlier point in juncture, it was all towards commercial, not residential and commercial. So I guess I'm kind of tying up 3 things or 4 things together. We have a service area. It's already in a plan. It's already documented. The port already has a copy of that service area. And at this point, I can't go beyond that. And but as far as the rest of it, I'll have to look at what your agreement is. But I was hoping that we could get to a decision. I understand what the port's concerns are, and but I was hoping that we'd get to at least to affirmative one way or another to do the testing. So anyway, with that, I think that's most of my comments. Thank you.
Hey, Scott, can I
Yeah.
make a comment?
Sure, Bonnie.
Well, there's been some confusion about how long the port has been in the water business. They've actually had a well there since 1960. There's been a well there. And in the early 80s, they had 13 acre feet and they were already serving public and private at that point. In 1997, the Allyn Community Association came to the port and asked them to expand their system because Allyn basically had no water system that could service anything. And so they agreed to pursue that. And then the legislature made a different law and said that no commercial could hook up to anything but a Class A system, which screwed Allyn totally as far as commercial development. And that's when the final decision was made. And that was in the 1990s when they had first come to it. They made the decision to move ahead. It took them some time to do that. And when they did finally get to the point of getting the water system in there, it was, they'd been working with the state and with the county, and the county, down south part of the county, wrote a water plan system for Mason County, but they left out Allyn. And when we went to the state, they agreed that they left out Allyn. They did not do planning for Allyn when they did the Mason County planning. And so the state supported us in moving forward to get the Class A so we could have commercial, and also to cover Allyn as a whole because there was no water system and no hydrants or anything else. And that's what moved us forward. Now, as far as the water right with Jeff, he was not ready to recede, and they did put us ahead of him because it was the greater need. Back in early 1990s, Lakeland Water tried to get the port to buy the system, but the port just didn't have the wherewithal to do it at that point. So there's a lot of things that have taken place over the years, and whether the port should be in the water business is moot because it's been in the water business very strongly since the 1980s. They had 15 customers. So they've been in the water business for a long time. To expand, you don't back out because somebody else comes in. That's
Thank
it.
you, Bonnie.
Thanks, Bonnie.
You betcha.
All right. Well, I think that's it for public comment. I've got one thing for good to the order. If anybody else has got something for good to the order, I would like them to go first.
Oh, we're going to try to do the port day tomorrow via Zoom. I'll keep you updated.
I've got something good for the order.
Okay, go right ahead, Brad.
I hope they win the Super Bowl.
Who's they?
That's what I was going to ask you.
Brady?
I'm voting for Brady's because he's an old man.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
All right.
One more thing, if you got another minute.
Sure, Richard. Good to the order.
Well, as some of you know, I was the fire chief through a lot of this, and we really wanted hydrants in Allyn, and the port stepped up and made that happen. So I think they've they've paid their dues.
All right. Thanks, Richard. All right, I'm going to just read a statement that I prepared here. Dear Commissioners, please accept this as my formal notice of resignation from the position of Commissioner for the Port of Allyn, effective March 1st, 2021, making my last official date 2/28/2021. After careful consideration, I've made the decision to resign so I can better concentrate on my family, my health, and my career. The time commitment to the port has grown to the point to where I can no longer give 100% of what is required. That being said, if I cannot provide to the port what they need and deserve, then I will move aside and assist in finding a suitable candidate. Working for the port has been a wonderful experience that has afforded me many valuable opportunities to learn and grow. I'm very grateful to have been part of this organization. I hold the staff and the other commissioners in the highest regard and have the utmost confidence in their ability to move the port forward in achieving its established goals and projects. I will continue to support the port projects that I have been involved in as a taxpayer and member of the community that I live in and love to serve. Sincerely, Scott Cooper.
We don't
I would
accept
move
it.
to adjourn.
No, we didn't accept it.
Well, you just slapped me upside the head, Scott. What are you
All right.
thinking?
I would move to adjourn.
I'll second.
it.
All right, meeting's adjourned.
Thanks, Scott, for your service.
You're welcome.